Relationships are about treating each other as equals, but that doesn't mean that everything has to be equal. And most of the time, it's not. When I started going out with my husband, who is 11 years my senior, he had a high-flying job in STEM. I was the receptionist at a PR company. As you can imagine, there was something of a disparity in our earnings. This disparity got even more stark when I decided that I wanted to become a writer. For the second year of our relationship, I was an after-school nanny and MA student. Suffice to say, I was not exactly making it rain. It meant that any fun things, cinema tickets, city breaks, eating at restaurants, had to be predominantly paid for by him. Which carries a certain amount of stress. When someone pays for you to do something nice, you're not doing it on your own terms. You feel like you have to be nice. You can't have a tantrum on a holiday that someone else paid for, or start a row over a meal where you're not going to be covering the bill. It just doesn't feel right. It would be rude, which means biting your tongue, something which always does the relationship harm in the long run. It's not just that though. One of you earning a lot less than the other puts tension in the relationship. If you're bankrolling your partner whenever you go on a date or holiday, then it impacts on your own finances. My husband might be a good earner, but he doesn't have infinite resources, and helping me out took away from his disposable income. While he did that happily and willingly, and it didn't exactly mean he was starving, it was still a sacrifice. So I found myself trying to compensate in other ways. Those years where our wages were at opposite ends of the pay scale have formed how we interact with each other. To this day, if we go out for a drink, he will always try to pay, even though I'm now perfectly able to. When I go out with my friends, he'll ask me if I need money, which I really don't anymore, though I can't pretend it's not tempting to say yes. Money is one of the most common things that couples fight about, and the lack of it is what causes the tension. Small luxuries make life nicer and easier. And more importantly, having money means being able to buy your way out of stress. Your car breaking down or your rent going up isn't a big deal when you've got plenty of cash. But when you're broke, those things become the end of the world. You end up having to try and borrow money for your deposit just so you can move house. Sitting around at home at the weekend because you can't afford to go out. My career aspirations were the reason that my husband had to experience financial stress at a stage in his life where he'd mostly left that behind. It was a sacrifice that he made for me, and I think he'd say it was worth it, but I can't pretend that it was easy. Having navigated the arguments, the sense of boredom being broke is very dull, and the worry, I wondered whether there's anything that we could have done differently to make the whole thing easier. I spoke to relationship expert Annabelle Knight, who told me, if you're in a relationship with a big pay gap, you could face a few bumps in the road. More often than not, one of you won't see this as a problem. This is usually the partner who earns more. For those on a lower salary, they may experience feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, or insecurity. Below are my top tips for dealing with financial flaws within your relationship. Understand that for most couples this is completely natural. Rarely do two people earn the exact same amount of money. Because of this, it's almost completely unnatural for those two people to contribute financially evenly throughout the relationship. Have the conversation. Societally, we are programmed to think of it as rude or crass to talk about money. This view tends to follow us wherever we go, even into a relationship. Being able to talk to your partner openly and honestly about all aspects, including money, is extremely important. If it's something that bothers you, then you should be able to speak to your partner about it. Do the maths. Sit down together and work out a system that works for both of you. If, for example, you look at your relationship's income as a whole and work out what percentage you contribute to that whole, then that gives you a pretty clear idea as to how much you should be contributing. If you bring in 20% more than your partner, then it's only fair to supply 20% more than them when it comes to bills, etc. Recognize value other than money. There are a lot of ways a person can contribute to a relationship besides financial offerings. If you feel that your partner puts in less than you, try and see the value in the other things they do. Perhaps they cook more, clean more, or organize the running of the house above and beyond what you do yourself. Change the way you think. Instead of thinking of yours and mine, think of it as ours. View the money in your bank account as joint financial earnings and try and see money as just one piece of your relationship puzzle. Don't play the blame game. It's really important that if you're in a relationship where earnings are an issue, that no one is made to feel bad about their income. Placing blame on a person for something such as money makes them feel inadequate. Feeling judged negatively by your partner, the one person who is supposed to be behind you, always can be extremely damaging. Be magnanimous. If you're the one who earns the most, don't brag. After all, it takes a confident and worthy individual to rise above something like this. If someone can see their partner as an asset rather than view them as a threat, it means that they are well and truly comfortable with themselves, and, even if not financially, they are definitely your equal. Some of what Annabelle said was what my husband and I managed to stumble our way into doing, but only through trial and error. Other parts still make sense even now when the gap between us is smaller. There's no reason to think that a relationship with a money gap is any less likely to succeed, but it's important to be pragmatic about it. Dating someone wealthy might seem like a total win, but the reality is that it comes with its drawbacks too, and you need to be prepared for those. This article is part of Money Month, our month-long series of features, advice, and experiences about our tricky relationship with all things money. More. Starbucks has released another limited edition Christmas cup. More. How people live on low wages. £19,000 a year.